Faith is Fear by Genesis P-Orridge and Simon Dwyer. The first lesson from which all others grow is the simplest. We are mortal. We all die. This is not a morbid wallowing in hopelessness. It is the ability to genuinely come to terms with our physical transience that liberates us all. Many visionary philosophical systems include the small death in their ideas under one name or another. We all die. This realization, truly assimilated, can be turned to positive use in that it spurs one to action, aware that all time is limited and no lifespan is certain. Every second counts and must count. This realization can also be used unproductively, crippling an individual man or woman's search for fulfillment of all their needs and preventing for all their life a complete integration of every aspect of their character and thoughts. The inevitability of death can be used by outside forces as a weapon to create fear. Religions use this weapon more blatantly than any other suppressive social regulation systems. They use fear of death to justify faith. Note, those who escape the trap of religions through a first-stage cynical knowledge of the hypocrisy of modern society and the emasculation of their individual power to change anything often seek oblivion from this knowledge, and so they use various drugs, tobacco, alcohol, tranquilizers, and opiates like heroin as a substitute for faith. They want to kill time. Religion wants to sidestep time. Both are actions based in fear. Mankind spends a constant amount of energy in self-preservation. This very phrase, self-preservation, implies a threat of annihilation and is triggered by fear of death. So in a very real sense, fear of death is present behind all normal functioning. It resides permanently in the unconscious, molding our image of ourselves in relation to an inevitable, inexorable crisis of death. Yet fear of death could not be constantly present in our day-to-day conscious mental functioning. This would be an intolerable burden. To behave normally, the biological organism, the animal man, represses its knowledge of death to acquire comfort. As things are, so they must change. So we are all socially and biologically conditioned to put away our fear of death. Yet, in a real paradox, we become too efficiently oblivious to this fear in our conscious life. The temple tries to reconcile all our consciousnesses. To do this, it embraces the knowledge of our own inevitable death with courage and uses it to justify action and the proper use of time. In actual fact, none of us know how much time we have, but when we do die, it ought to be with zero regret. Zero regret is the magical state of inner balance and calm acceptance of the mortality of individuals, and the use of zero regret to channel all future action. The perfect state is to be sure that no time is wasted, no energy repressed, and no fear hidden. In old language, we must experience the small death of literally facing ourselves and facing the reality of a temporary metabolism, a limit on time. Time can be a tool, a liberator, or an oppressor. When we claim time back for ourselves, we are at last learning to be free and effective. Control needs time like a junkie needs junk. To escape control, we must re-embrace our given time. Initially, the human being has no apparent alternative but to succumb to a negative appreciation of death, to feel fear. The brain is genetically programmed for survival and will not allow itself to believe that it shall cease to exist. Thus, as we have already seen, the unconscious mind will seduce the intellect into ignoring logic and fact, a condition bordering upon hopelessness. It will ignore the lessons of experience and observation in fear of an inherited image of existence, and the effect of fear will be repressed. One will immediately become vulnerable to a desire for hope that bypasses a confrontation with unconscious knowledge. Religion thrives upon this. It requires only an act of blind faith in exchange for guaranteed hope and salvation. It denies death and avoids the facts. In short, religion turns away from the truth. The temple turns towards it. If you face yourself, you face death. And in this way, only you can reintegrate your entire character in all its levels of consciousness and perception. This cannot be stressed too much or too often. So, in religion, all practical thought must be swept aside in a flood of faith. Answers become words, and facts become sins. This thing, faith, is the foundation of all religious thought. So powerful yet fragile, faith must be protected. Protected from doubt, protected from questions. It is seen as a constant that will not even tolerate thought. Its causes, its real essence, death, are so entrenched in everyone's mind that it has become the basis of every society. And so every society has developed a system to protect it. Dogma. The equation, simplified, goes something like this. Dogma negates thought. Thought is the enemy of faith, therefore the enemy of society. Individual thought patterns are discouraged in order to preserve faith inviolate, to thus preserve society, to preserve the status quo, and the vested interests of the keepers of faith and dogma. It is in this web that religion meets politics, and they reinforce each other in a web of deceit. Those in power have a personal interest in channeling individual thought down safe, unthreatening avenues geared to the production of material goods and services that are to the benefit of society, of the greater good. In other words, you sacrifice your time, and your time is your most precious commodity. When you take yourself back, it becomes priceless. People are deflected from the theft of their time and trained in how to produce and consume instead of how to be engaged in their habitat and ideas. Politics organizes, religion directs. From a child of 5 to an adult is a short step. From a newborn baby to a child of 5 is an appalling distance. Tolstoy. Religion invades the child's world. A child without guilt is thus given guilt. A child without fear is thus given fear. The only salvation offered is through faith. Faith, it is suggested, ends death. The price of cheating death through faith is, of course, submission. People who are not satisfied with this situation, people who want proofs, who wish to develop a system without guilt and fear, that absorbs and uses death as a positive and liberating knowledge, are discouraged, ridiculed, treated with suspicion, and often deliberately misrepresented in the media. They are, after all, a threat to society to some degree. They strike at the core of the trick that controls us, and in so a real sense, they are dangerous. The Temple of Psychic Youth is dedicated to the reacquisition by individuals of their allotted time. It encourages, it does not discourage. It stands as an example of what is possible. To be involved is to become very special. With the passage of history, society's control over individuals has been so progressively subtle that it has become imperceptible, perhaps even genetically inherited. Its very power lies in the fact that even its figureheads and leaders do not know its processes. Control is invisible. Time is invisible. Control is so able to shroud an individual's perception of reality and trivia as to become a uniform reality in itself. A reality that cannot ask itself questions, that cannot even formulate a language capable of setting questions that might reveal the truth. In an age of collapse and transition, we must find a language, a way out of the corner donated to us by history. The human brain must develop, become the next step in evolution. It is simply that we must develop our latent neurological powers or truly die as a race. It is a war for survival. Through experiment, through exploration of these latent powers, by visionary use of science and technology, and by the integration of experience, observation, and expression, we must revere ourselves. A reality that cannot face itself becomes an illusion, cannot be real. We must reject totally the concept and use of faith, that sham. We must emasculate religion. The universe of magic is within the minds of mankind. The setting is but illusion, even to the thinker. The temple is committed to building a modern network where people are given back pride in themselves, where destruction becomes a laughable absurdity to a brain aware of its infinite and immeasurable potential. The temple is committed to triggering the next evolutionary cycle in order to save this flawed but lovable animal man. The temple is committed to developing a modern, functional, and inspiring magical structure, and engendering at long last the completely integrated and effective individual, And this network of individuals is in turn inevitably faced with the task of action to communicate survival and social evolution to others. We are the first truly non-aligned and non-mystical philosophy. Fear breeds faith. Faith uses fear. Reject faith. Reject fear. Reject religions and reject dogma. Learn to cherish yourself. Appreciate intuition and instinct. Learn to love your questions. Value your time. Use mortality to motivate action and a caring, compassionate, and concentrated life.